Today we're going to talk about a bombshell campaign finance violation accusation against freshman Republican Lauren Boebert, a desperate stunt by Matt Gaetz at the first committee hearing of the new Congress, and my interview with the host of the Mehdi Hassan Show, where we talk about Lou Dobbs' surprise firing from Fox, whether Marjorie Taylor Greene should be expelled from Congress, and Trump's upcoming impeachment trial. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're listening to No Lie. I want to start with Lauren Boebert, the freshman Republican lawmaker from Colorado, who's best known for tweeting, "Today is 1776" on the morning of the insurrection, which pretty much sums up everything you need to know about Lauren Boebert. Like, if you're the woman who put herself on record cheering on the mob that would ultimately kill a police officer and watch several of their own participants die, then you've pretty much sealed your legacy. And so knowing who this woman is, this bit of news really shouldn't come as much of a surprise. According to reporting from Chase Woodruff at Colorado Newsline, Lauren Boebert's restaurant, Shooter's Grill, because God forbid her entire identity wasn't predicated on a gun, was delinquent on unemployment insurance premiums dating back to 2016. By 2020, the grill had accumulated 8 liens for non-payment of that unemployment insurance, totaling about $19,500. Now, $19,000 of that was paid off on October 22nd, 2020. So the question here becomes, how did she get the money to suddenly pay off those liens? It likely wasn't from the restaurant itself, considering that when Boebert filed as a candidate in January of 2020, Shooter's Grill posted a net operating loss of $242,000 in 2018, and that since then, the pandemic has ravaged the restaurant industry. And Shooter's Grill even had its license revoked in May for defying Colorado's in-person dining rules, and Boebert herself said, quote, "Governor Polis, your policies are literally bankrupting small businesses like mine that are trying their very best to responsibly stay afloat." So on its face, it doesn't seem like the restaurant suddenly became a cash cow mid-pandemic. And side note, those policies she's railing against are literally the only thing helping, considering if people just respected those orders and actually worked to stop the virus, we might actually be able to contain the pandemic so that we could return to normal and so that we could have full capacity in restaurants. But because those so-called patriots like Boebert decided to pretend the virus was no big deal, that is precisely what allowed it to spread and ultimately hurt people like herself in the end. Okay, so back to repaying the $20,000. If it wasn't the restaurant that suddenly netted her $20K to pay off those liens, what could it be? Well, the Denver Post then reported that Boebert paid herself $22,259 in mileage reimbursements from her campaign account in 2020. Now, at the IRS's reimbursement rate of 57.5 cents per mile, that means Boebert claimed to have driven 38,712 miles in those 11 months. And that's despite 0 publicly advertised campaign events in March, April, July, and just 1 event in May. And to make matters worse, the reimbursements came in just 2 payments. One was just over $1,000 that was paid at the end of March, and then $21,000 in mid-November, meaning that she had to have driven 37,000 miles in just about 7 months to justify that second payment. That is enough to drive the circumference of the globe 1.5 times. She could have flown to Australia and back twice and still had miles left over. Don Young is the lawmaker who represents the entire state of Alaska. It's an at-large district, biggest district in the country, and he still reimbursed himself less than half of what Lauren Boebert claimed. The amount that Boebert reimbursed herself is more than her Republican predecessor reimbursed himself for travel, including airfare, over the course of 10 years representing that same district. And now her campaign released a statement saying that she ran a grassroots campaign. They said, quote, "She traveled to every nook and cranny of the district to speak with and hear from the people about their concerns. They say showing up is 90% of the battle, and Lauren always showed up. Her aggressive travel schedule is a big reason she won." Well, seems like not everyone was swayed by those platitudes, considering a liberal group called Accountable.us, a government watchdog group, filed a formal complaint with the Office of Congressional Ethics. And so we'll await the results of that investigation so we can find out whether having driven the circumference of the earth was above board or not. But if it does turn out that she lied, then that's just one more example you didn't know you needed about a Republican hiding behind campaign buzzwords and platitudes about small government while using those very government processes to bail themselves out, but to do it at the expense of the people who put them there. Like, let's not call this anything other than what it is. She will have defrauded her own supporters. So when you wonder if the rot in the GOP would stop with Trump, who, by the way, is the undisputed king of defrauding his own supporters, the answer is clearly no. These people may pretend to be out there for the little guy, but it was precisely the little guy who was screwed here. And bear in mind, Boebert won her election with just over 51% of the vote. That's it. This isn't a plus 37 red district. It is purple. And they've got not only one of the most virulently far-right Republican representatives, but one that's credibly accused of fraud, which is probably why, I think at last glance, there were 3 Democrats that had already announced bids to unseat her. And look, it is one thing to be far-right, and for a lot of people in her district, that might be exactly what they're looking for. But it is something entirely different for her to be a crook. And if that's the way she began her political career, then that's exactly what should end it. And by the way, it's not just the freshmen sucking the air out of the room, although they do a pretty bang-up job of it. Matt Gaetz showed up at the beginning of this new Congress and decided to pull this stunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to extend a welcome to the new committee members. I'm grateful to be back on this august committee, and I understand and appreciate the significance and importance of the work that we do. And I just think it would be nice if, in the spirit of national unity and national pride, which I know we all aspire to do to a greater extent, that at the beginning of each meeting, the chair or one of the designees of the chair would have the opportunity to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We're all aware that in these times, it's important for the country to see members of Congress working together on some things. And while I know that we can deal with divisive issues in the committee, it would be my hope that we could start every committee with a great unifying patriotic moment. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. I recognize myself to speak in opposition to the amendment. It's unnecessary. The House begins every day with the Pledge of Allegiance. We're covered by that. There's no necessity to say the Pledge of Allegiance twice during the same day. So
that was Jerry Nadler who was like, no. But if you're wondering why Gaetz did that, it was so that he could tweet this. Quote, "This week, Democrats mocked Republicans because we wanted to say the Pledge of Allegiance. It takes 15 seconds to say it. Our country desperately needs to see how Republicans and Democrats can come together over something, but Democrats refuse to unify even over our pledge." Without skipping a beat, right back to the same culture war bullshit as before. I mean, this is war on Christmas level pettiness. Imagine wasting a single breath on this at the same time that there is a pandemic ripping through this country, at the same time that nearly 500,000 Americans have died from COVID, while people are getting evicted, losing their jobs, and your priority is the Pledge of Allegiance? Are you kidding me? If Matt Gaetz wants to recite the Pledge of Allegiance so bad, go become a middle school teacher. Otherwise, people are dying, so do your job. And as for the issue of unity, Republicans got it in their head that unity means that Democrats have to capitulate to them. That if we don't bend over backwards for the losing party, then we're not seeking unity. That if we enact our agenda that we have a mandate to enact, then we're not seeking unity. That if we don't water down our bills to make them less popular with both Democrats and Republicans, then we're not seeking unity. Jen Psaki had the perfect response to this, and I couldn't say it better than her, so I won't try.
And given the president's remarks earlier and his change of tone, it does seem that he is now okay if this does happen just with Democratic support, despite those hopes and despite his calls for unity.
Well, first of all, the president ran on unifying the country and putting forward ideas that would help address the crises we're facing. He didn't run on a promise to unite the Democratic and Republican Party into one party in Washington. This package has the vast majority of support from the American public.
Biden promised to unite the country. He didn't promise to unite the caucuses in Congress. And for good reason, considering even the Republicans in Congress don't represent their own constituents. Like, take the COVID package, for example. It's got 70% approval across the country, red states and blue states. Everyone is hurting. Everyone wants relief checks. Everyone wants unemployment insurance. Everyone wants funding for vaccines. Everyone wants money for their own states and localities. And yet zero Republicans voted to advance the measure in the House or the Senate. Not a single Republican voted for it. So Joe Biden is uniting both sides of the country, and he's showing that you don't need to kowtow to the bad faith partisan hacks representing those people in Congress. So I would just say this, for your sanity and mine, be wary of this culture war bullshit. Because when Republicans have nothing else to attack you for, then not wanting to recite the Pledge of Allegiance 12 times a day, then that means you're doing something right. They have no beef on the substance, and that's because substantively, Democrats are doing the right thing. They're focused on COVID relief with the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan already moving forward through budget reconciliation. They're focused on voting rights, on climate change, on immigration reform. All of this is popular with people, and Republicans know that. They know that they would bury themselves if they started attacking Democrats for passing legislation that has the support of 70% of Americans. And so instead, they stick to small, petty wedge issues. And so while it might be annoying to hear a grown-ass man complaining that we're not adequately filleting the flag, just know that if that's the best he's got, then we're probably on the right track. So listen to my interview with Mehdi Hassan, where we talk about Lou Dobbs' surprise firing from Fox, whether Marjorie Taylor Greene should be expelled from Congress, and Trump's upcoming impeachment trial. Check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel. That's it for this episode. Talk to you next time.